This show carries a government health warning.
Oh, no!
Rise and shine, sleepyhead. It's a brand new day.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale.
Now prepare to experience the most outrageous man on radio.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Good morning!
Why do you think your own survival depends upon emotion from us? Should we pity you? Empathize with your plight?
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
But each of them subservient to that monitor in his brain, that intruder which instructs, coordinates, protects the project.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate it. I appreciate your loyalty, your dedication, your everything that I am not. I'm trying to find the most depressing sound there is. Yes, that is the sound of the pouring rain. Which it is doing today, 100% chance of rain. And it's already raining, and I've already been up at the attic. And I've already used the pump. Could you frickin' believe it? I guess we might as well just look at the
Weekend weather!
Let's see what they're saying now. It's currently, according to this, 54 degrees outside. My voice assistant said it was 56, and it was going to be 57 today. Now, this one is saying Friday, 100% chance of rain, correct on that prediction. However, 55 for the high and 46 for the low. Now, here's where it gets scary. I planted some basil, whatever you want to call it. Put a few things out, some lettuce and stuff. Saturday and Sunday, it's going to, tomorrow, 80% chance of rain, which means it's going to rain all day for the next 2 days. I'll be living up in the attic. I might as well take a cot up there, which I don't have. 48 degrees for the high tomorrow, 37 for the low Saturday. Sunday, 57 for the high, which is supposed to be today's high, 37 for the low, and then Monday and Tuesday, getting into your work week, as they say, it may be sunny, but the lows are going to be 43, 45. Come on, give me a break.
Weekend weather!
That's your weekend weather, so it's going to be soggy, so make sure you wear your Mac in the pouring rain. I listened to Penny Lane this morning. Had my voice assistant play it. I said, hey, play it. And I didn't even realize that there was that line. I forgot. I hadn't listened to that song in so long. I mean, I know the words pretty much by heart. But I mean, yeah, I forgot. And the banker never wears a Mac in the pouring rain. Very strange. Mac. Yeah. Anyway, welcome. You know, bonjour. There was a time and place not so long ago, ... And it says in the chat, put it this way, things were a lot different and much better. I took a picture with my iPhone 6. Think about that. It's not hooked. I don't have any cell service with it. But I took a picture with my iPhone 6 of the other computer, the audio computer, the one that does this thing, and of a program I'm still running on there because I'm running operating system 9.22 on there, I do believe. Let's see about this Mac. Come on. There we go. Oh, no, I'm running version 10.4.11. That was the last version of Apple's operating system that allowed you to open 9.2 programs like naturally without in a shell, so to speak, like some kind of Linux shell or whatever. And so I have freehand. I just thought I'd open freehand. You should see it. These programs open like bam. And I have Photoshop C2, I guess it was called CS2, and InDesign CS2. Right before, see, I said this once before, they were getting people like primed. You see the reflection in camera 2. You could see that it rained outside and the light is reflecting on the wet ground. That's kind of neat. They do that in Hollywood movies a lot. They'll spray down the ground for effect in lighting just to give a certain atmosphere. Did you know that? Think about it the next time you're watching, like particularly thrillers or, movies like that. You'll notice, or a drama, like a serious drama type of thing. And if they're out in the streets or if there's a chase scene or they're doing something, look at the street to see if it's wet. More so than not, it's wet. Anyway, just a little tidbit, a little Hollywood, give you these little Hollywood nuggets every now and then. But anyway, I had 2 eggs. I had last 2 eggs. They were from pasteurized free-range chickens. The rest I have turned into pickled eggs, and I have like 2 or 3 of those left, I guess. The sell-by date was April 23rd, but I believe you could keep them in the refrigerator for a couple of weeks. I'll find out if I get sick. Other than that, that was my morning, siphoning some water out of the buckets upstairs, and we're supposed to get over an inch of rain. And normal rain here, like when I've had to go up and empty a bucket and a half or so, which is a lot of water, it's been like it rained 1/10 of an inch. So for it to say it's going to be like an inch and 1/10 or something, at some point we're going to have some kind of like major Noah's flood deluge. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I asked the thing twice. I didn't even because I couldn't believe it. I thought, you got to be wrong. You got to mean 1/10, not 1 inch, not over an inch of rain. That's a lot of rain for a guy who's got But I mean, I'm stuck in a house, so I guess it's going to be like sitting on my chair. The attic door is not far from the chair where I watch YouTube on TV. So it'll just be a matter of taking trips up when this deluge happens, I'll be taking them up every half hour. But I guess on the hour. The worst part is the overnight, because it's going to rain tomorrow. So that means it's going to rain overnight. And one of my catchment systems work. But the one that fills up the most, wouldn't you know, is the one that's over my bed, and that thing really fills up. And I thought I had slowed down whatever leaks. Look at those coal trucks going. I had slowed down the leaks above it so that it would be on par with the other ones, which you could get through the night on. But this one just keeps filling up, and I'm afraid it's going to overflow. So inevitably, I'm up there like 1 o'clock in the morning, emptying that one out so I could get back to sleep. Anyway, that's that. That's the usual.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
But yeah, this is I just thought, I was thinking about this. I listen to Penny Lane, an old Beatles tune. There was a time and place not so long ago, Freehand. Man, Freehand was a really great program. Macro Media. They totally, that's gone. It doesn't exist. Elements of it ended up in Illustrator, even though I have an old version of Illustrator. The dates on this one are, the last date on this is 1998. Let me look on Illustrator here. It's copyright, 1998. It opened, the program just opened. like that quick for me. Now, how can a computer that's over 15 years old, right, with an OS, that's, let me just check, with 10.4 OS, but what year? Let's look at the About Mac. I can't keep track of all these years. 2007, right? So, and, I have 6 gigabytes of RAM, SD RAM, and a dual 2 gigahertz PowerPC G5. That's what it is. Okay. Hope I didn't. Eating eggs for breakfast, give chest pains, heart attack, coffee, caffeine, and eggs. There was a time that they would tell you that, like, that would be the worst thing for your heart. I don't know. Then they started to say coffee's good for you. Then there's still people that say don't do it. Eggs are bad for you, then they're good for you. I don't know. Anyway, I need to relax. I'm not aware. I mean, even though I've done all these things and it's 5:30 in the morning Eastern time on the 6th of May in the calendar year 2022 in the former United States. Yesterday, of course, was Cinco de Mayo. I ended up not doing anything. And I do realize yesterday at some point I said it was the 4th, and it can't be the 4th if it's Cinco. Because that's what Cinco is. So just thought I'd square that away. No, I did watch the playback and realize that sometimes when I'm half awake, I say the stupidest things. But I swear I looked over at my calendar and it was a 4. So I was saying one thing and, I don't know. And the screen had something else on. I don't know. It's weird. Which goes to show these people who read these teleprompters, which I don't do. Oh, by the way, I watched a little bit of Days of Noah last night. He was getting into some stuff. And apparently they screw with him, too. Like, he was having some weird things were going on with the screen. Like, he was like, am I still on? Am I still on? Like, yeah, man, you're still on. They're just messing with you because you're telling the truth. I think he's got another show coming on up Saturday. He does these live things. But anyway, yeah, so some people will look at that, first of all, if you don't know Mac, that doesn't mean that, that whole look and feel. Well, I don't know, kind of Windowsy. Windows has copied some of the icon. Look at all the little icons and stuff, the things you could do with freehand. If you look to the far right row of little icons at the top, you'll see like a circular thing. You could make like an instant pie chart. Like you just click on that one, put in some numbers, and it would just make a pie chart, and it would be vector. See, that's the thing about freehand. Freehand was a vector program. Vector art means it's all composed of lines, and that it's scalable to any size. So you could create something, and you could have it enlarged to a billboard, and it would not, pixelate on you. And, but you could draw with it. You could, this was the first program where you could create type and turn the type to art as well. So that, you could stretch the type, distort the type, enlarge it, right? Export it, and it would have no background on it. Like in the early programs, there was always a white background on something, right? Some people today still don't know how to do that. You got to use it, save it as a PNG instead of a JPEG file, right? Sometimes GIFs, and and I disagree with that Fran Blanche that GIFs is technically GIF. No, Fran, you're wrong. It's not GIF because otherwise it would be .com and .gov. It's .gov, it's .com, it's .gif. And it's not GIF because GIF is a peanut butter and it begins with a J. It's not a soft G when you have a G. When you have a G, right? There's certain vowels that have to follow the consonant in order to soften the G. That's grade school stuff, man. You're a scientist. You should know better than that, right? I mean, some of these people, the things they say.
Science.
Yeah, science.
Your papers, please.
You're getting to be a habit with me. Remember that show I did, man? That was a classic. That hardly got it. None of these shows get any views. I pull out all this like crazy graphic stuff, these cards, these title cards, you know, stuff, you know, blasts from the past. But if it's before your past, you know, it's like that thing Tattoo sent me. That, where is that thing? If I can find it.
Back in time, 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 back in time.
And I wasn't being insulting when I said the woman that you're living with down there in the Ozarks. You do know that. I was just joking. She's a wonderful girl. I was just half awake in the morning. In case somebody took offense to that. Unintended. So here's the deal. It's kind of humid. I'm between that point of where I usually am like hardly awake at this point to where I'm, you know, a little more awake because I had to go up those stairs to the attic, but I'm not fully, you know, there like I am in the end of the shows. What does that mean? Absolutely nothing. But other than, you know, coal trucks, shiny streets, and a picture of an old-fashioned freehand screen. In case you're looking on a small screen, which I'm against. Let me enlarge this for you. You can grasp the whole thing here. See that? You can see it was licensed to my iMac in the art department. Freehand 8. System version 9.22. And it even tells you how many kilobytes for free. 72,498 kilobytes free. Were available, I guess, for use. Now let's see if I can get out of this thing. So this thing's totally like acting up on me. Let's go back down to wherever we were. So anyway, yeah, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's like I'm not one of those people, you know, it's like the good old days for the sake of the good old days. You know, these are the good old days, like Carly Simon sang. Depends on your life and what you're doing. I mean, it is what it is. You have to live, and you have to accept it and find, you know, happiness, you know, within your time, you know, whatever time you're trapped in, you know. I mean, even if you're somebody like me.
The future. He came from the future.
You know, but, you know.
And so do I.
So, you know, you just got to live with it. You know, you get trapped in time. You're stuck in time. You know, I'm a man out of time. That's in the opening of my Flow of Consciousness book was like a semi-serious, not that one. I got so many freaking books I wrote. It's like ridiculous. It's like the music. Then what? I'm opening it up to the first page. A man out of time, which it could be taken two ways. I also have this thing here, this included in that is China, is a map because I was basically, will there be war between China and the U.S.? If so, it'll probably begin in the South China Sea over Taiwan. So the question is, will that come to fruition? Most Americans are unfamiliar with the Far East. 50 years ago, eyes were focused there because of the Vietnam War. But since then, the U.S. has been fixated on the Middle East and has always kept its favorite nemesis, Russia, as a looming threat, which is why we're dealing with the things we're dealing with now. But like I say, it's interesting reading, and I always recommend, like I say, get the print version because you have it, you put it on the shelf. There's a budget form in there. There's a form in there to get your life in order. And there's some typos because I self-published, but so what about that? Every one of my books has some kind of typographical error in it. Just I look at them as production errors. There were one or two books where I actually went through the process of actually like repairing, finding the errors and re-uploading the book. I'm telling you, self-publishing a book is a task. It's a monumental task. If you go the full gamut, it's hard enough to do the print version, to have my books for sale everywhere, technically, and there's 2 copies at the Library of Congress, or supposedly. But then you have to create a digital version for Kindle, and then dealing with Apple, because that's a whole different thing. There's a different program for that. I used the Apple program, which has a slide down. I've mentioned this once before. Export to Apple Books, because I have an account there, because my music's also available on Apple Music. And yet, when I viewed the book through Apple Books, digitally, it's like it's a little bit out of whack because there's a lot of photos and stuff like that in it, and they just don't have their acts together. They'd rather I don't know what they're doing. That's what I'm trying to say. If you look back at this program, the last time they updated this program freehand, for example, and was 1998, right? That's 24 years ago. Basically probably 25 years ago, because that's the date on it, because it's like I don't know what the first date on there is. But I mean, that's a long time ago, and we were creating unbelievable things with these programs. And as you can see from all those things at the top and stuff, the power of this was just outrageous. I mean, I didn't even get the full screen on there. You could just see some of these pop-up things, And so when I say computing 25 years ago, let alone, 35 years ago, I was on the internet, sending emails and stuff. I was certainly using desktop publishing 35 years ago, right? Got a job, in graphics using, the early stages of these programs, Macs, PageMaker, another program they got rid of and replaced with InDesign. I still say PageMaker was much better than InDesign is. PageMaker no longer exists. I have a copy of it still, right? I just don't have that much stuff to create that I need to utilize these programs anymore. But I have them. It's weird when you're like yesterday, if I'm on this is the vlog.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
I have no idea who's just tuning in to these things. So if you're curious, I figure at this point, there's either a random curiosity seeker that's going to definitely glean some like stuff that's like really far out from watching me and this show, or it's somebody I know or have known that's basically probably curious about, what's going on and what I'm doing. So either way, that's why I do this. And even though the numbers look small, I'm all over the place, and I'm on some different platforms now that are getting some numbers on their own. So, you can't just go by the YouTube numbers anymore. And I don't think that they're probably not too happy about that. So, yeah, I'm in about, four other places where my stuff is available. Not the entire library, mind you. Only one of them has the entire library. Another one I may build up the entire library too. But in other words, I'm covered. And I think everybody should be covered because you never know, So even though these numbers look ridiculous and preposterous, like I got right now I have 0 views, but I mean later it might be only 2 or 3 views, and one of them might be me. When I share it on these other platforms, I think that counts as a view. The act of me opening the program, opening the video and sharing it counts as a view sometimes. I don't know if it does or doesn't. Pretty sure though. But in any event, it's so strange, and I just don't have the time to do it. But if I did, on some of these other programs, I was explaining this to someone at one of the platforms. I said, I've already put, and I'm not going to name names like one over the other, but you know the platforms out there. There's about 3 other platforms that are fairly populated with a lot of videos and and I don't know, name videos, people you would recognize from YouTube or whatever. And and one of those, which I don't really upload to, and I haven't uploaded to in a while, but when I uploaded to that, see, it's the act of uploading that's the problem. I have to, save I do these videos live. So I would have to save this video. Now, there is a possibility of me recording this as I do it myself to my computer, which would save me trouble if I was really hell-bent on doing this. But anyway, generally speaking, I don't. It goes to YouTube, and then it's instantly available on YouTube for playback. Now, I can download it the next day from YouTube, and they make you wait a day. It's weird. But then I'd have to physically upload it, and then I have to re-put up a title card, description, all this stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But I had done that. I was doing that for a while when I was like, I don't know, I guess I had nothing better to do. But on one of these other sites, it's like I would post a video up there, and within the hour, there'd be like 100 views like already on it. So it just goes to show how YouTube, and that's like something different than YouTube. How YouTube is like got me totally like just totally blocked, right? It's beyond shadow banned. It's like blocked from view. You have to literally have the URL, know who I am type of thing. Even people who have subscribed to me have often told me, they said, I never got an email or anything that said you were live or anything. You got to press the bell. Press the bell. So anyway, I do have a larger audience than it appears, and that's fine with me. Sometimes I like looking at the 0 views. It's like less pressure, I'm half awake. It's the morning. There's a bus out there, the 10 to 6 bus. This guy's decided to wait. Maybe he watched my video. See that? Or somebody complained. Maybe there was, that day I said that, somebody running to the bus stop, and they called and complained. Now he's leaving. Still early, though. Anyway, so, yeah, it's kind of just like I don't mind talking to myself because, ultimately. But if you look back 25 years, it doesn't seem that long ago. But I mean, that's freehand, and I was using that, and you can't imagine the stuff we were doing. Creating, publishing magazines, creating advertisements, brochures, artwork for billboards, advertising agency stuff. I mean, crazy stuff. Logos. Freehand was really good for logos because you could the manipulation of type and the fact that it was scalable. So you would be able to provide someone with an EPS file that had a, first of all, the background was, like I said, there was no background, transparent, but that they could put on their letterhead, or they could put it on a billboard, or make a sign on one of their radio station trucks or something if you designed a radio station logo, which I designed a lot of. There's stations out there today still using my logo, that I designed, 25 plus years ago. So, yeah, it's interesting. So I that's where I'm at today. I'm just in that mindset. I'm not necessarily in some sentimental mood. I'm not, reminiscing, per se, whatever that's supposed to mean. It's just, I'm glad the deluge hasn't begun. So I'm happy for that. And I don't know what else. It's like, I hate being trapped in the house. I hate these 100%, rain days. Though I did accomplish a lot yesterday. I got 2 rats were captured. I know people don't want to hear that. The big rat, the big mean rat, is still roaming free. It seems I can't be certain, but it seems that a cat may have made it into my yard. I sprayed this catnip spray, and I planted a lot of catnip. I also planted things like thyme, some basil or basil, depending on what country. If you're from the UK, it's like basil. Like Basil Rathbone. He was the best Sherlock Holmes, if you watch the old black and white versions. What else did I put out? And I transplanted some lettuce and kale that was growing in this one spot into my main garden area. So this rain for 2 days is going to be good for the lettuce and kale, as long as nothing gets in there and nibbles away at it. So that's my biggest fear. That's why the priority is why I wanted to have gotten rid of all the rats by now. Because it's food season. If we get a couple sunny days next week, when we don't have some ridiculous frost, but like I say, lettuce will survive it. No, I have burlap. I just put stuff over it, enough to keep them from being destroyed. I obviously wasn't foolish enough to put out anything like tomatoes or peppers or any, hot weather plants. They will go out not this weekend, but next weekend. Our last freeze, according to my little green book, all right, there was a frost warning on the 10th, 11th, and 12th of last year, which was later, however, than the previous year, which was around the 2nd or 3rd. So I hope we're not getting less than, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. This whole concept of this man-made, Jabberwocky is really surprising to us, growers, people who grow things. So in any event, yeah, I'll probably, assuming nothing gets in my garden and the focus of the critters is still the bird feeder, then I should be able to make a salad next week, end of next week, definitely within 10 days, literally from my garden. And that'll include some I have a ridiculous amount of oregano growing. I mean, I could supply bushels of it in bags to restaurants, put it that way. That's how much. Now, the thing is, the rodents supposedly don't like mint, peppermint, and oregano. And I have oregano, peppermint, and mint that is growing around my garden area, my primary food areas. And like I say, I've put out a lot of catnip. And the idea there is that if there are any neighborhood cats around, to try to draw them to plop into the yard, come in, take a drink in the pond, and that their presence, should scare away these things. Like I guess they maybe have in the past, but I think they're still working their way up the street, with the sewer for this, like told you, the fourth dig. So I don't know if that means there's going to be even more, another round. I really don't feel good. A friend of mine said, hey, he has a trap. Should I bring it over? It's like I have some mouse traps out there, which are, little rats are the same as mice, but I really prefer to solve this problem humanely in the sense that, I don't know. Why does this world have to be the way it is? It's just, and why are they messing in my yard? I'm not the only person that has it's not the bird feeder. I've had that for 6 or 7 years. Oh, but I didn't take a picture, and I hope the rain might knock it down or something. I have to watch that. I should have taken a picture yesterday. There was one apple blossom on my apple tree yesterday. I saw. I mean, my tree should have been filled with apple blossoms if I was going to have a harvest this year. And some people say if you just get one or two, that what you should do is you should clip that off so that the energy is focused. This year's energy is focused on the roots. The tree itself just getting stronger and growing stronger instead of putting its energy into creating the apple, But part of me is, I'm just going to sit back and we'll have to see in the coming couple of weeks if I get a bunch of blossoms, then I'll let them be. But if it's just one or two, I may take that advice. I mean, these are some of the things that I watch on, watch YouTube. These guys who grow these food forests and fruit trees, show you how to trim fruit trees. People have been doing it for 30 years and stuff, successfully. People who run orchards and stuff like that, not some backyard guy like me or something. That's why I say I relate to you my story, but it's just the basic.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
This is just anecdotal, the morning vlog, whatever, and we get into some kind of. Today we're going back to freehand and that era. All of the programs that we have today in one shape or form existed, though their names were different. The names were changed, but they did, And freehand was definitely a really cool program. It was the companion piece for PageMaker. So if you had, which no longer exists either. But if you had, Aldus was the company. If you had Aldus PageMaker and Macromedia Freehand, and you were a graphic designer, advertising agency, or just an artist, who worked at a company and that you were in the art department, put it that way. That's all you needed to do whatever you wanted to do. whatever you wanted to do, you know? And we're talking about high end, you know, because at that point, this is 25 years ago, this particular version of freehand, 1998, you know, 97-ish, you know. So, you know, think about it, that even 10 years prior to that, basically desktop publishing was already happening in major markets, and especially on the West Coast. On the West Coast, you had places called service bureaus. I partnered in one with, when I told you that story, when I originally went out to LA, I got a job working, you know, because I ran out of gas. I was out of gas, needed a place to stay, and I went in and I, you know, because I had these skills and I got a job. Well, I later, after that, I guess the third time I went or something, I don't know, whenever it was, me and this guy ended up partnering in a service bureau. And a girl I knew who worked with me previously, like that first time I went out to LA, this is like a long time ago, she ended up having a good job at like one of the LA's leading service bureaus. And, man, I lost touch with all these people. Like I say, you know, it's the amount, I was talking about it on another time, the amount of friends that I've had that I've lost touch with, you know? You know, I mean, I remember her name was Liz. Now I could just come into me now. I can't think of her last name though. I mean, we're talking like 30-some plus years ago. You know, but I mean, you know, we would hang out, you know, have lunch, drink, you know, whatever. In fact, I used to, her and the guy she was living with, I used to drive into work. Because at one point I was staying in the same hotel. I think it was the hotel that Tom Waits stayed in. And it was across from Hollywood High, right? It was a Hollywood High School. It was weird. But, you know, I used to, like, you know, stand on the corner. They'd drive by in this weird beat up old covered truck they had, and you know, three of us squeezing into the front seat. There was no back seat, driving into work. And I don't know what the other guy did. You know, he was a professional extra. Like, he would just like comb you know, the trades to see who was looking for extras, and so that's how he made his money. He was always working on some movie, you know, and he'd tell us the tales, you know, this movie that he was working on. But, you know, it's just, you know, I haven't thought of her, or him in that time, you know, I can't remember. This is the first time, you know, since. But, you know, like the Cowsills said in their last song, as far as I know, those were some good years. But we had everything we needed to do incredible things, technological-wise, computer-wise. And as I said, the software, even though the memory, the processing power, and all of that stuff was like, was nothing compared, right, to what we have today and to what's been released, you know, in the past year. The machines just started right up. You know, Apple was notorious because that was the big joke about Windows, is Windows was the big wait, you know, for it to like load and stuff. But Apple computers, it would just start up, and the program, you'd click on the program and blammo. And it still does it over here on this computer.
Hey, it's me. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine. I'm just, you know, telling people that, you know, the place where you live on that computer with an operating system that was last updated in 2007, right? Which is hard to believe. That, you know, the program's just opened right up. And I'm obviously playing sound effects and everything on here. So the audio capabilities, you could video edit and do whatever you wanted to on those machines. And people just don't understand that. So, today we have this bloatware, and they've messed with the GUI, in other words, the graphic user interface. So someone may look at this thing and say, oh, that looks like a kind of a Windows knockoff, GUI. And I'm saying, who cares? Who cares what it looked like? And we had all kinds of really cool tools, control panel tools, because we could get into our control panels. So we could change the colors and looks and the fonts and stuff of our programs. In the early Macs, you had access to do that. So you didn't have to use that default type, for the file, that row up top, the thing that says extras, window, help, that kind of thing. You could change that font. You could change instead of it being a gray background, you could change that to, burgundy or whatever. The whole look and feel of the program. You could have the drop down menus be transparent, and weird stuff like that. This was years ago. And these programs would open on a dime. And you were still producing high-end graphics. And so that's the puzzling thing. So imagine, that's what I'm trying to explain. It's like, if we've done nothing in the past 25, 30 years, relatively speaking, in fact, around the same time, MP3 had already been figured out. MP3 was the sound, track that was used in recording video. And so someone realized, hey, we got this compressed audio, in this video file, right? Why don't we let's yank that out of there and use that to compress audio to make audio files, right? That's like what MP3 is. That's the origins of MP3. That's where it came out of. Film, like basically the film video industry. So I had digitized music back then, MP3 files. There was real audio files, which no longer exist. I mean, I have a ton of them, but and I fortunately am able to convert them to MP3s or whatever. But people think like, oh, all this stuff happened when the iPhone came out and Facebook and Twitter. Like Twitter, man. $50 billion, $40 billion, whatever the hell it is, for an app that people could, thumb type back and forth with bots. The First Amendment. There is no First Amendment. There hasn't been a First Amendment since, I don't know, what, at least a decade plus. We haven't lived in a constitutional republic, I don't think, in 20 years since the Patriot Act, right? So, think about it. But I'm not going to get into that. But technological wise, man, it was fun. And the internet worked just fine. And, that Netscape was a pretty cool browser. And people had websites primarily. And so those were your channels. So it was like, instead of 57 channels and nothing on, or like right now, if you have one of these full-blown packages, you could have 500 channels and nothing on. TV, I'm talking about, cable, or satellite. But the internet was, millions of channels, and I had my channel, my website. It was like a channel. And that's how we looked at the internet. And that's how people were looking as how the internet was going to develop. And then, you had like, well, AOL sent a CD out to practically everybody in America, sent 5 CDs out to everybody in America. So it was like, get on AOL, which was like the first downfall, right, of the internet. And then the second downfall was MySpace, right? Because MySpace was the precursor to Facebook, right? So in effect, so people no longer, people didn't want to learn basic HTML, or they didn't realize that if you had the Netscape browser, Netscape had it was Netscape Navigator. Netscape had a I forget what they used to call it, but it was I wonder if I even have Netscape on here. Let me look under my applications. Applications. G5. System folder. Control panels, extensions. You used to be able to totally change anything you wanted to do on the old Apple systems. It was really cool. Here we go. OS 9 applications. Claris homepage, File Buddy, Freehand, Claris homepage, architecture. I have a program that I could use as an architect. I just scared somebody away. I guess they don't like that idea. Afraid of the truth? Don't be afraid of the truth. PageMaker's on here, Illustrator, Acrobat Reader, Internet Explorer, Macromedia Flash. Outlook Express, man, that was a good program too. I even had a guitar tuner in here. There's the Real Audio Encoder. And I had the app Real Audio Live because we used to have a server and we used to broadcast live. Something called Oculus. I used to have a webcam back then, broadcast a webcam. I don't have a Netscape on there. That's too bad. That's weird. Anyway.
It's the best. New. Real. Cool.
Not really. It's not. The outside looks really neat on my computer. The glistening of the light from the store window across the way onto the thing. I mean, you could see why a filmmaker would want to do that. Right? It just adds a lot more visually to the scene. But in Netscape, you had the ability, it had a built-in program that was kind of like Claris Homepage, which was an Apple program. Claris was owned by Apple, then they sold it, and then the company that bought it and a program called FileMaker Pro, because that was the one they really wanted. And the moment they bought it, they discontinued Claris Homepage. So unless you had a copy of it, which I have, and I used for years to build some incredible websites with it. I still like it, And Adobe, when I used to pay the extortion fee, monthly Creative Cloud extortion fee to Adobe, they had come up with a program called Muse, which was pretty interesting, which was kind of visual. In a sense, you can drop and drag things to it and stuff like that. But you could also add some HTML to it. And then they dropped that. And the whole thing comes down to is that people just didn't, the average person was, I guess, this is going to sound ridiculous. It was functionally illiterate.
Why do you think your own survival depends upon emotion from us? Should we pity you? Empathize with your plight?
I mean, I don't really talk like that, but you know what I mean. It is kind of weird. We were on this trajectory, and then suddenly it's like we were going up, 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 and then we took some kind of weird turn. And so then a few of these devices came out, like the smartphone, Like I say, the old iPhone 6 is the last one I bought. Or used, really. And then everything changed. And these companies and these programs disappeared, these cool programs. And then it was all, big tech. That's when big tech basically came after the so-called .com crash, 2000-ish. And, you ended up with this, big tech, big profit, VC, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. They kind of took the fun out of it. It just became it was basically monetized. It's like YouTube. You've got these YouTube millionaires that are like, basically have become professional, like they're trying to become professional videographers or so. And it's laughable because they're watching the same. There's something, it's an ad a lot of them have. It's this, you can learn this stuff online. Learn from a professional such and such, right? They do these. We're sponsored by such and such. And so they all have the same thing going on. They'll be like constructing something and then they'll cut away and they'll show a picture of a babbling brook or a bird chirping on a tree. And then they'll cut back to this. Or sometimes I've noticed they've learned parallel editing. So they'll have like I was watching that yesterday. Somebody was using parallel editing. They must have learned that from something. So the guy, the girl, the wife, and the kid were upstairs painting something. And downstairs, the guy was like putting in drywall and, in the whatever. And they would cut back and forth. That's called parallel editing. These are basic film things. And so, you see them using this, and then, these people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's their living, And in front of your eyes, you can see that they've gone from living in a trailer to living in a mansion, right? More or less. So they're what I call YouTube millionaires now. So now they've built these things and stuff. And they're looking for new projects and they're expanding or whatever. But it's like the viewers paid for it in a sense, and they basically just thumbed their noses at people like us who went to them. I never entered this game for monetary reasons because I was basically demonetized before they monetized, because I had an argument with the old guard at Google, the people running Google and Facebook and Alphabet today don't even they have no idea who I am, right? But I told this story before, but I guess it bears repeating every 8 months or so. I had created a better browser than Google's. So I was more in line to take the place of Yahoo than Google. And what Google did was, the way they got at me was they claimed that my browser was a pay to play. It's almost like the politicians today. Like, in other words, they put whatever they're doing, they accuse the person that that they're against of doing, right? When in reality, I had all these links. I had come up with a better way of searching, and a search that was not only looked good on a desktop, but that was made to look good also on a smartphone or a tablet. And I created the little concept of the icon and the description next to it. And like I said, I was featured when Steve Jobs was still alive, he featured me. I met Steve Jobs at a Macworld. I think 2 different Macworlds up in San Francisco. But he featured me a couple of times on the Apple website when the iPhone first came out. and he was pushing that thing before they got into the apps as, these APIs and all that kind of stuff. Because that's how cool my browser was and some of the stuff I was doing. And of course, everybody in tech had all eyes on that, right? And so Google had eyes and they saw what I was doing and they're going like, hey, that guy's like, that's like those things are pay to, those links, those sites that come up, his search is pay to play. But it wasn't. It wasn't. It was curated. We spent a lot of time. It was me. It was just two of us. We basically spent years combing the internet, and we picked all this stuff up. See, we came to the conclusion, and so, but that's how they blackballed me, and that's why I'm blackballed to this day, because I'm probably on some list, right, or something, or they just never realized it. It's like, hey, I'm not even running that thing anymore, though it's still out there, but it's just not it's secret. It's like super secret. People still use it. All right. It's still better than Google. All right. There was no lawsuits or anything weird like that. This was just a prick move on Google's part. But we had figured out long ago that, when you go to Google and you do a search, you come up with, it'll say, 1 million, 10 million. Sometimes you could get 1 billion search results, right? Now contemplate this, right? Just for a second. It's, think, I don't need to do that.
Another hour. Brilliant.
Another hour. Okay, we're into the second hour. I got to fix that thing. That's a work in progress. Anyway, we figured a long time ago that humans are humans. Okay, so you're searching for something. Chances are, what are you searching for? And how many options do you need? 1 million search results? 1 billion search results? Like I've said before, humanly possible. Is it humanly possible to even go through? You can't go through 1 million pages. Even scanning quickly without even clicking on the link, 1 million. Think of 1 million pages. Okay, page 1. Up, down. Page 2. Up, down. Page 3. Think how long it would take you to get to page 50,000. Let alone 100,000, 500,000, million, 1 billion results. And people were going, look at our great and glorious search engine. We have 1 billion results or 10 million results. And people use the first page. And what they accused me of is pay to play, which I didn't have at all. I had ads. Right at the top, unobtrusive ads too, by the way. But no one paid to be listed. We chose whether we listed you, okay? Because our idea was that unless you were an individual looking for Joe's towing service in Poughkeepsie, all right? What phone number? That's a reasonable searchable item. Okay, anybody could find that. Any simple, because what was searched was just the yellow pages online, right? What's a website? It's a company brochure online. You see, you got to strip things down to its basics, right? They were trying to overcomplicate it in order to get big venture capital, I guess, and I don't know. Didn't DARPA got involved in, and the CIA and all these people got involved with, basically Google Alphabet is so entrenched in government that you don't know the difference. That's why it's a corporatocracy. You don't know where so-called elected officials or what were people who think they're government bureaucrats, where they end and where the corporate world begins. That's why I call it a corporatocracy. Anyway, so the idea of my browser was designed to fit on the smartphone ahead of time. Okay, they didn't have that capability. All right, in the beginning. So that was like, ooh, they saw that. Steve Jobs was hip on it. Heath goes, yeah, this is cool, man. Yeah, I'm going to put this number one featured, app of, on my site for the iPhone, brand new iPhone when it first came out. And, the idea was, okay, what are you looking for? Like, say you're looking for media, right? Print media, for example. You don't need 1 million results, right? You just name it. It's the print media. So first of all, page 1 is, the Sacramento Bee, Washington Post, New York Times, Philadelphia Inquirer, Chicago Tribune. You see what I mean? So all the major papers, I just said Sacramento Bee because of Silicon Valley and stuff, right? LA Times. So you list that stuff, all right? And then, which don't even need descriptions because their name is their description. They're so well known. But you would have a thing underneath it that would be more like this, so that things that were either like, there were Hearst newspapers, the various companies that owned various groups of newspapers. It's just like in radio, before Clear Channel took over the whole world, right? And you still have it today. You have radio groups. You have people. In fact, I have a friend of mine. I haven't spoken to her in a while. But I designed their logo for their group and some of their stations. But she had I don't know how many stations she had. She and a partner or whatever. I'm not sure what their corporate structure was exactly. But at one point, it was her and someone else, I think, primarily. But they just had they started out with maybe less than a dozen stations. And then they moved to another state or something, or split the company up. And I think she went to another state. I'm not going to, I respect people's privacy. But she ended up having maybe a couple dozen stations. So she had this group of radio stations. And so, so I would tie stuff like that together, so it was a little bit more sophisticated even than Google today. But it was consolidated so that, here's media, here's print, here's radio, right? The same thing. I'd have the big radio stations, radio station groups. And I had things like Live 365, places where you could listen to music, right? And it was icon based. So you could just, when you went to the first page, it was just, you just clicked. Okay, I want to listen to music. So you clicked on music and here's your thing. And it's like, whammo, listen to this station. Because a lot of stations were broadcasting live over the internet. And I basically had to direct link, with a button type of thing that kind of had that press down thing, which was just simple HTML code. I built this whole thing out of HTML with a little bit of JavaScript. And, and so it goes, and so it would be, you pick a category, equestrian, my sports section was incredible because I basically had you don't need 1 million results for sports, right? You have pro football, college football, right? Baseball, right? Hockey, soccer, right? Equestrian, right? The Olympics. Go down the list of all the major sports categories. And then during the seasons, like college football season, I would have a link under college football, and I'd have a link that would be the standings. So, because people want to know what's the top 20, college football. If you don't know, not in sports, you don't understand. But, NFL standings, baseball standings. right? Then links to the teams and the team sites. You know, in other words, it was like a hierarchical almost, but it was like kind of sideways is the way I worked it. But it was just page a page, and there was just so much information you needed. You did not need a million results. You needed the categories of human life, which basically fit the categories of interest of most people, fit right there on the screen. And it was 2 rows, and they were like buttons type of thing, right? You know, what are you interested in? Music, right? Sports, politics, right? Art, philosophy. You know, think of the things there are that you would be interested in and make a list, right? The average person. I'm not talking about somebody into complete obscurity, but there would be science, sci-tech, you know, movies, right? And those movie links usually would take you to your local movie, because that's how stuff worked back then, because, you know, if you would click on it, you would see what's playing in your town instantly, right? And so Steve Jobs, he was like, he got it, right? And I figured I was going to build this thing out, so I never bothered going to VC or Jobs or any of those guys and saying, hey, kick in some money, let's build this thing out, let's make this happen, you know? So, you know, I would have become the next Google. And meanwhile, I had no idea that Google's looking at my every move. Okay, what's he? Oh, I see. Okay, you know, but, you know, we could do this. And they turn into this multi-billion-dollar giant, ridiculous, you know, behemoth, right? Yeah. And then blackballed me as a way of, right? Because I didn't even get to the point of, you know, I mean, I had trademark on the name, but I mean, it was like, you know, I didn't patent the process and all that. So I just like, screw it. It's an interesting story. I've gone into it once before and a little more in depth, and I think I showed it last year. Like I showed a portion of it. I said, I'll show you how it worked. But it's still up, you know, on I have a server. I have my own super secret server. So, which I'm going to probably I might get rid of this summer, because I've just about had it. You know, like this stuff is getting old and things are changing and becoming so bizarre that it's time to focus on life. And and people have lost interest. Like, in other words, you could say these things to some people and they'll be like, oh, so what? Who cares about that? I like Google. Yeah, but do you know that, you know, have you watched my shows? No. Well, if you would have watched my shows when I was going through some health issues, and I was looking like, is it okay, you know, to eat such and such if you're having, you know, for a gallbladder or something like that? And the first answer at the top of the page that was generated by Google, right? Chosen, right? The chosen one would say, yeah, this is good for, you know, blah, 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 because of reasons, blah, blah, blah. I put this whole thing up on a show one time. And then right below it was a thing, if you click the one below, the link below was from like a medical clinic or something like that saying, no, this is bad. You don't want to eat that. And I'm going like, first 2 links, one description at the first top, but next to it, the one you click on takes you to like one of the leading clinics, you know, physician-based, you know, data report, paper, medical journal type of thing. And it's saying, giving you like scientific reasons why you shouldn't. And yet at the top of the page, it goes like 10 million results too. And you're going like, I can't even believe the first 2 results on the first page are in conflict with one another. And you're telling me you got 10 million results. The hell am I going to do? Spend the rest of my life going through 10 million pages? And even if I did, I couldn't. You can't. You literally can't. It's not humanly possible. But even if you could, if you were some super speed reader, whatever, right, savant, the contradictions would be so, so numerous that you wouldn't come up with any kind of conclusion. It's ridiculous. It's insane. So when you can't trust the internet, right, and you can't, when you can't trust news, right, you watch the news. That's why I don't have the news. I don't have television, cable, satellite, or anything. Got rid of it. Somebody comes on and they make a statement, and, it's like I say, you don't know what you don't know, and that applies to them. Or everything you know is wrong. And they make this blanket statement like matter of factually. They have no idea what's going on. And people are out there, okay, yeah, right. These are the people that the Department of Education tells you that, such and such a percentage of them graduate high school, functionally illiterate, basically have no reading skills, or very poor reading skills. And so they're watching this. They can't comprehend half the words that these people are saying, probably. And they're like, okay, yeah, that's going on. We got to do something about that. And you could go right down the categories. And the people on YouTube, like this, that's what really annoys me the most. Like people who watch these so-called independent type of people who've come up, the YouTube millionaires, like outside of the DIY people and stuff. I'm talking about the people who are like, they think they're alternative news type of people. And they sit there and they opine among each other, right? And criticize, and they have guests on and this, that, the other occasionally. And one contradicts the other. And they don't know what they're talking about. They don't have any reporters in the field, right? There's things going on around the world. They don't have anybody on the ground over there, where that, the big story of the day is going on, right? They have nobody on the ground over there. It's like a lot of time these people, even on the networks, they'll have a reporter and they'll show them reporting and they're not really in the thick of it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, at least during the Gulf Wars, it had people embedded, so-called, with the troops, right? But that was like kind of farcical too. But I mean, in some instances, there was, they were at risk. As much risk as the rest of the people in the, platoon. But that's, 20 years ago. No, nothing's happening, right now. It's just a bunch of people trying to make a buck. Big tech's the same way. And I promised I'd say it every show, and I will. 40,000 people are dying unnecessarily every week. And it's primarily because of processed foods, right, that have been approved by the FDA. And you can, if you don't believe that, just go to the cdc.gov website, look at the leading causes of death, divide it by 52, and see what you come up with. And look at the list. The leading cause of death is still heart disease, cancer, People, type 2 diabetes, obesity, kidney-related things, stuff like that. People still dying from just the good old-fashioned flu and pneumonia and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, primarily, you look at these numbers, and it's like when you talk about heart problems, kidney problems, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and things like that, these are all like carbs and sugars and stuff that's in cereals and all these processed foods, boxed foods you buy. And when you go to the grocery store, it's like some 90% of the grocery stores, all processed foods, all that stuff's been approved by the FDA. Then when you talk about cancer, you see these commercials on TV by law firms saying this product caused cancer, blah, 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 or people died from this or had these complications. But then you go to the box store and that product's still on the shelf. So they've made a settlement, so they'll pay out, so many millions of dollars, but they're probably making $1 billion. So they figure, okay, it's the cost of doing business. Lives will be lost. Can you imagine that? Right? Think of it in terms of, foods too. Right? Well, lives will be lost on the magnitude of 40,000 Americans a week. Right? But, it's a cost of doing business. We don't care. But let's everybody send money over to overseas to help those poor people over there. Well, 40,000 people aren't dying over there. What's our problem? What's the problem with saving our own people? You see what I'm saying? And the same goes with, like I say, there's approximately like 2,000 murders a week that most of which go unsolved. And the crime rate's like out. Well, the crime rate is the numbers are just not even tallyable, I don't think. Okay? If you think about it. Right? And number of cities, how much lawlessness there is. Right? And these people get slapped on the wrist, they, fined. Half these people just get away with it. And, I'm not even talking about the smash and grabbers or the opportunistic looters or these arsonists and all these other people that do this. Like whenever there's a thing that happens, they all like just come out of the woodwork and start like just taking stuff and whatever. So you don't stand there and criticize me when I say this is the former United States and that there's nothing any politician, some cult of personality hero that you have is going to change and make this, a better, take us back to the days of freehand, just a mere 25 years ago. Life was a lot better. TV was a lot better. Movies were a lot better. Music was better. All right? Everything was a lot better. Until this corporatocracy took over. Big tech, big ag, big pharma, military contractors. The Fed got out of control with all the, as of 2008 when they started bailing out, the banks and high finance. Wall Street was, totally ridiculous, and the list goes on. It's you live in a corporatocracy, man. All right? Face the facts. I mean, I haven't done this in a few shows. The true marionettes are the media and politicians. Okay? They're puppets of the corporatocracy. And you're a puppet of a puppet. Okay? I mean, that's real. That's a meme. I made that meme. You are welcome to steal that meme and repost it. And everything else is hypocrisy for profit. And these people on the media, they claim to have these like moral standards, like they're better than everybody else. But their own behavior doesn't conform to that. It's all pretense. And time after time, these people are caught and called out. And yet people keep watching, right? Well, that was just such and such. That was No. I mean, this is it. This show is the truth. This is the truth, 30 frames per second. There is no other like this. Graphically produced. Guy who writes 10 books, 50 songs, 600 some videos, and then had a lifetime of like extraordinary adventure. And I got 0 views? Yeah. I'm telling you, everything you know is wrong. You don't know what you don't know. And when someone hands you some line and says human caused this and we're going to do this by 2030, open up your sweater and underneath have a shirt on that says, "Then what?" Then what? And they'll be like, duh, what do you mean, then what? Well, it'll be like utopia. Get the be nice thing, too. You know. Anyway, thanks for watching.
Good morning.
I encourage you to go to rockflux.com. You can get the Be Nice shirt. You can get it in military green, which is like, that's why I chose that type, which is like kind of the old, stenciled on material sent over to war zones. But that color looks nice too. But go to rockflux.com, TonyCaravanLive.com. It's just a website of links to all of these things. My clothing line with all these sayings on it. My latest 2 books, Then What and Codex. Then What is the most recent. Get the print version. It's available on Amazon for like $9.95 or something. Get it. Both of those books are companion pieces to this show. And I have a total of 10 books if you like those. Yeah, my first 2 books are pretty autobiographical, so if you're interested more about me, check those out. Great Solar stuff is more than solar. It's got power backup stuff and all that stuff. Check it out. I am not monetized. You say, what you're selling? You're saying buy our books. Yeah. Point is, I don't own the company that makes the shirts. I don't own Amazon. I don't own the people that create the power backup systems. If you listen to my Beat Poetry 50 songs, I'm lucky if I get a fraction of a cent in royalty. If you buy a book, I might make 50 cents, if that. You get a shirt, it's something like that. Depends on what you buy. So, no, I'm not getting rich on this. I'm not making any money. That's not the point. I'm here to help you, give you some advice, share some anecdotes, take it or leave it. But it's the truth. Not like these other people are out there just trying to make a buck, peddling nonsense, half-truths and outright lies. Take care. Have a great day. I hope it's dry where you are. I'll let you know how bad the day turned out. Cheers.